Welcome to The Dose with Paddy and Belinda, your podcast for all things weight loss and GLP1. Remember, the information within this podcast should not be taken as personal medical advice. Always consult your own healthcare team before starting or changing any medical treatment. For now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation. It's The Dose with Paddy and Belinda. And hello to you. You are welcome along to another episode of The Dose with myself, Paddy Cunningham, and Belinda, where we talk about all things GLP1 treatment and indeed wellness and weight loss. Today we have a fantastic conversation lined up, but I'm not going to tell you all about that. I'm going to hand over to Belinda, who is going to give us a little bit more of an insight about today's chat.
Thank you very much, Paddy. So today's episode is something really special, and I think it's one that's going to resonate deeply with so many of you. We're diving into a topic that's at the heart of lasting transformation, what it means to have someone truly in your corner, guiding and supporting you at every step of the way. I'm thrilled to introduce somebody who has been a pillar of strength and guidance in my own journey, my incredible health coach, Nikki. For the past 18 months, she's been by my side, helping me navigate not just the practical aspects of my health, but also the mindset shifts, the wins, and even the setbacks. Today, we'll uncover the vital role of what a health coach plays in helping people transform their lives. We'll talk about what you should expect from a coach, the unique ways they provide support, and how they can empower you to achieve lasting change. Trust me, this is going to be an inspiring conversation that you won't want to miss. So without further ado, let's welcome Nikki.
Hey, Nikki.
Hey.
Hi, Belinda. Hi, Paddy. Oh, what an introduction. Thank you, Belinda. You're kind. Really.
All very true. And thank you, Nikki, for being here. We're delighted to have you.
Yeah,
of course. I'm so happy to be here.
You're very welcome to our virtual studio. You know, with the cleaners in, we tidied up and everything just to have you come in.
Right, I did blur my background just for you guys. So.
I haven't figured out how to do that yet. I will, though.
No, we can't teach you more tech stuff. No.
Because I'll forget it and ask you again. Yeah.
So let's go. Nikki, I would love to know, let's start at, I guess, the very fundamentals for somebody that mightn't be familiar with what a health coach is, or a coach in general, and kind of the role that person plays. So to start with, if you were speaking to somebody, what is your kind of elevator pitch for what it is you do?
Okay, that's a great question. It makes sense to start with that. And the elevator pitch might be long, so we might need to take a lot of stairs instead. But essentially, health coaching is a quite new concept within healthcare. So in the UK, it is actually a quite popular concept that's already integrated in NHS, versus in Ireland, we are a little bit behind with that. But regardless, it's become a really, really important part and support for anyone really, but essentially health coaching is a very collaborative process where we look into different well-being areas of the individual, trying to establish what would help them to basically reach their health goals. So everyone is having individual challenges in their lives, whether it's the area in stress management or physical activity. Sometimes it's about their energy or how they sleep. But these are all really important pillars of our well-being. So a health coach meets you where you are at, very importantly, looking at what's going on at the moment in your life, and really look into this goal. So where do you want to get in the future? Do you have any goals in mind? Is there any area in your life that you feel deserves some attention to get you there? And health coaching, very importantly, give you that space to talk and to share what's going on. And I think that's one of those things that's really missing in healthcare in general, having that space and having somebody that actually listens to you. There can be so many individual circumstances and challenges that prevent us from getting there, from really improving how we feel from day to day. So a health coach can help you to find what direction is best aligned with where you are at, and of course what aligns with your values. I think we are really geared towards quick fixes and one size fits all approaches, and I think we all know that doesn't really work on a longer term. So it's all about making making sustainable changes, and for that we need a little bit of a support system. So that's what the health coach is for. It's a really broad role, and there are a lot of areas we can address together.
Yeah, and I know. Thank you. That's fantastic.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, and I'm in a hotel at the moment, and I'm on the 12th floor, so that definitely is a great elevator pitch to pass the time, as opposed to the awkward silence that I've had in the lift all week when I've gotten into it. So it is. But like both myself and Belinda are like huge advocates, particularly for people that are starting out on a journey like the ones I guess we have been on, that is supported by a relatively new medication. But even for folks that aren't, but a huge advocates for that multidisciplinary approach, of which a health coach is part of that. So I think it's great to help people understand, so rather than maybe just thinking I need my doctor, which is a crucial part of it, or my pharmacist, which is a crucial part of it as well, or maybe a personal trainer, which is, you know, an important part of journeys like this for people as well, that I've kind of seen a health coach as a person that can almost like tie that ribbon of bringing so many of those different areas together for somebody to try and see, okay, what's going well, what isn't, what barriers, what blockers do you have. And I haven't said this to Belinda actually, because it only happened this morning. On TikTok, I got a message from a person that was saying to me, hey, I'm working with a health coach at the moment, but I'm finding it really uncomfortable having to go in and talk with them. Do you think it's important that I still continue with that? And I don't know if my phone heard me now to read out the reply, but basically it was along the lines of, I said, the fact that you're finding it uncomfortable indicates to me the exact reason why you need to go and be in that space. And you need to open up to those health coaches about the fact that you're finding discomfort by going and meeting with them, because there's some reason for that. There's some trigger or underlying thing
that you haven't spoken about
that I think could be useful to open up. You know, don't worry, the health coach isn't going to be offended if you say, I'm not enjoying this, or it's uncomfortable for me. If anything, they're probably going to really appreciate the fact that you're recognizing there's discomfort with some aspect of this journey, and even if you can't uncover why, they'll be able to help you uncover why. So like, yeah,
that's fascinating, and it's really interesting, Paddy. And I think it does highlight that health coaching is a very collaborative process. So it is a partnership, and it's really important to create a safe space when someone is happy and okay to share. And that discomfort, it's also something that we can explore together if you're happy to do it, and that's really important. So we need to know what you are ready for and what you feel you're ready for. And if we encounter discomfort, sometimes there's just a sign of something's changing, or something that is in the process of transformation. So discomfort is not a bad thing. If we are okay to sit with that discomfort, it can lead to fantastic transformations. But
it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to sit with that discomfort, isn't it? I mean, I know like health coaching is extremely holistic. It is, I don't think people understand how holistic it is, that it does touch every single part of your life. When you go into health coaching, you can't just talk about one subject, because every single subject in your life touches every other subject, doesn't it? You know, but I will say that I was uncomfortable as well, not because I was in an online room with you, Nikki, just uncomfortable with the stuff that was coming up for me, that I've never had a space where I was able to talk about those kind of things ever. And I talk about it all. I used to talk about it all the time on my Instagram as well, like the revelations that came out of having a health coach and the self-awareness that you come away with. It's an investment, I think. It's definitely an investment in yourself, especially if you're going on this journey that we're on.
I wonder, Nikki, do you think that sometimes, like if I think of my journey and experience over the years, like more recently and even before, and I've worked with different types of coaches and that, and sometimes that discomfort can come from, for me anyway, the fact that there's almost like a mirror being shone back at me, whereas when I guess I lived with obesity for the past, I'd say lifetime, kind of up until this year, and kind of finally, I think, getting proper control over life, maybe a bit more. But when that mirror was kind of being shone back at me, I was uncomfortable with that, because I've lived a life of deflection. of trying to not be the center of attention for, and some people find that gas, given that I do work in radio and stuff like that, or and the stuff online, but again, you're putting stuff out there to deflect bits that maybe you're uncomfortable with. And when I started having conversations with people about trying to uncover, you know, some of my behaviors or habits or thoughts about myself or stuff like that, it was difficult. Like a few years ago, I went to a therapist, and it was one of the best experiences I ever had. But, and I've talked about this before in a previous podcast, but in one of the sessions, she was like, Paddy, I just love to, you know, for you to tell yourself that you're awesome. And I was like, huh? Oh, why would I think about myself like that? What's going on here? And now this was a few sessions in, it wasn't like session one. And I sat there, I'd say, for like half hour, 45 minutes, just bawling my eyes out, crying. Because I just was like, why this focus on me? What's going on here? Why do I have to say this? And not that I was being forced to say it, there was space being held for me in a very safe space. And that was probably equally one of the most powerful sessions I had with a therapist at that point, because by the end of the session, even if it did take nearly an hour, we got to that place of me being able to recognize that
you're not what you thought you were.
That like my weight didn't define my ability to be a good human being and to be of value to other people.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Paddy. I think you brought up something really important. So whoever embarks on a GLP-1 journey as well, or any kind of anti-obesity medications, it can be a very emotional journey, especially at the start, but even going way. So it can bring up a range of emotions. And it's really important to have that support system where there is space for those emotions. It is not easy. It can be very challenging because, first of all, even making that decision is very, very challenging. So I'm sure you both had that.
Yeah.
Had that time when it was really, really, it felt vulnerable, maybe even to embark on those journeys. But having that support system, that multidisciplinary approach is really important, because our health, our well-being, it's really complex. It's very multifaceted. It's not about a medication. It's not just about one area. It's a harmony. It's a symphony between all of them.
And it all has to work together, doesn't it? In harmony. Yeah. Like for the first 6 months of my journey, I had started my journey on my own. I had just read about Ozempic in a magazine that my aunt had told my mum about. And I will say that I don't think, if I hadn't have had my health coach, you, Nikki, I don't think that I would still be on this journey, because it's extremely hard for some people to go through the emotions at the start, to realize that, oh my God, is this what my life is supposed to be like, when the food noise turns off? And that's jarring for some people. I felt it quite jarring as well when I realized that that's not the way every other person in the world is when it's taken away from you, when it stops. And then also, I talk about this as well, is the mourning for food as well, because that was my crutch my whole life. I used food as a crutch, happy, sad, whatever, every other emotion in between there, I used that. I also used it to soothe myself. And then all of a sudden I didn't have that anymore. And I didn't know what was going on. And I remember standing in my kitchen being really, really upset about something once. And I was 4 months in, I think, and not standing in my kitchen, not knowing what to do because I couldn't reach for the food. I just couldn't. And that is an awful lot of stuff for one person to go through on their own. Keeping in mind as well, there wasn't as much social media over 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. There wasn't, I couldn't find anyone in Ireland that had said one single word on social media, hardly, about Ozempic. So I was glad to come into the health coaching when I did, because I think I might not have stayed on it, because it was tough. It was tough, and you do need support. You absolutely do when you're going through it, especially at the start.
Yeah. And Thanks for sharing that experience with Belinda. I think it's very valid, and a lot of people go through something similar. So food in general plays a very important part of our life. So it's very deeply integrated in our social interactions, but also as a way of coping with different emotions. Sometimes we use it as a reward, sometimes we use it as a comfort, and it may become our primary source of self-soothing, which is where it can become, very unhealthy and very unhelpful in the longer term. And that's why that also is one of the things that highlights why we need a multidisciplinary approach, because you do need to address what food means in your life at the moment. If someone is experiencing a lot of emotional eating and they go on an anti-obesity medication, they might find that the food noise is gone, and that's fantastic. But the emotions will not be gone. You will still be there having all that anxiety, all that stress, all that upset. And you will not have a coping strategy in place to deal with it. And that leaves a huge gap, and that's really important to address. And that's where the health coaching comes into play as well. We need to that, what will it mean when the food noise quiets down, when you're on this journey, because there are a lot of aspects I think people are not prepared for, and this is one of them.
I was in no way prepared for it, no way. And all of the girls and the ladies that I speak to online in my subscriptions and also in my DMs, everybody has the same thought, that they didn't know what to do when it happened, and that's where yourself and Beyond BMI came into it, for me, and I was delighted with it.
It's one of the things we've spoke about, I guess, a bit, probably more so offline, Belinda, a little bit on the podcast as well. But if we compare, obviously the whole issue of access to medication in Ireland is like, we could do probably a whole series on that, and we are working on a future episode actually with healthcare professionals from the UK, from Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, to kind of compare and contrast kind of access to some of the medications and stuff like that as well. But one of the things at the moment that I find really worrying, or not worrying, but it is worrying. It is worrying, is that in the UK at the moment, you can literally go on to an online pharmacy today. You can bluff the information you put on there. And I see it happening every week in some of the forums and stuff like that. And then you can have the medication delivered to you the next day. You're starting out solo. You've very little medical support, very little healthcare support, very little, probably no coaching. And then I see some of the questions kind of going into the various Facebook groups and stuff like that, where people are coming looking for
information,
proper healthcare support, but from unqualified people and online and some of the stuff like that. And it's deeply worrying, like some of the replies and stuff that I see people getting in there. Like I'm, a qualified personal trainer even, so from that respect and some of the advice I'd see people being given each other, I'm like, oh my God, there's massive room in the UK at the moment for refining the approach that people get. And I think it should be mandatory, and including in Ireland, whenever we get better access, that there has to be a multidisciplinary approach when you're starting out on a journey with this treatment, because it is so confusing. There can be a lot to unearth, a lot to uncover. And I think it's so important that you do have that support nutritionally, mentally, psychologically, kind of in the various aspects of the journey, that there is somebody in your corner, like Belinda said, that has your back for those different things. So it's one of the things I hope that Ireland doesn't end up like that. I don't think we will. Like, I hope that, the general kind of healthcare system, that we can get a bit better kind of referring out to the experts when medication is prescribed. But then that's where we have, like, the likes of Beyond BMI and My Best Weight that are championing the multidisciplinary approach, which is so crucial and so important in this space.
Yeah. And even as well, that we advocate for these medications, myself and Paddy, always. But we also advocate for them to be prescribed properly, like Paddy has just explained. I've had people come into my DMs and ask me what dose they need to start on.
Yeah.
And that's the worrying part of it.
Yeah. I was looking here I found my phone, but I have something that I want to get back to from when I started with my health coach so in one of the very first sessions I had with my health coach, and I didn't really know what to expect going in, because I kind of thought, I'm really self-aware, sure, what am I going to get from this? Like, honestly, I was like, I'm always really skeptical with anything though. I'm like, here, do you know what I mean? Like, so I had like, is this going to be like a glorified session of when I used to go and, you know, stand in a community hall and get weighed and get clapped at, you know, and stuff like that.
Oh,
But
gosh.
so I went I went into the session not really knowing what to come out with, and it was so powerful. We kind of explored in that first session with me what kind of values are important to me as like a human being, and what's my value system that I kind of apply, that I think I show towards other people. So some of the things that come out there is like, well, I'd like to think that, you know, either in work or day-to-day life, that my friends and family would think that I'm quite loyal, that I'm dependable, and that I have deep compassion for people as well, and that I'm quite honest. Though if you ask me something, I'll give you the honest answer, which at times can be tough for people because you know, if you're asking me something, I'll be honest. But then we kind of flipped it on. Okay, well, how do you show those values towards yourself? And I was like, what? What's this curveball? What do you mean towards myself? No, shrine grand. I just, you know, go with the flow, I'll be fine. But we dug into that a little bit more, to the extent then where I was like, you're right. I don't know, how am I showing compassion to myself? How am I being loyal to myself? How am I being dependable? And how am I being honest with myself? And this was in the realm of, or in the kind of area of adherence to making sure that I was doing my workouts. A big part of it was that, as opposed to just taking the easy way out and sitting on the couch. It was kind of like, okay, so if you pick a day that you are, you know, you probably feel like you would like to be working out, but the easy way out might be just to stay on the couch. Is that being loyal to yourself? Is that truly being compassionate to yourself? Or is the compassionate thing supporting your body with that movement that you know, or that I felt I knew that I needed to do, but it was like, So I actually printed out on a page the exact words of I am loyal to myself, I am dependable on myself, I am compassionate to myself, and I am honest with myself. And then for each of those, I'd kind of write down why for that day or that week, what was the actions that were going to support those kind of 4 values towards myself. And I had that stuck on my monitor and would say it multiple times a day and kind of reflect on it. And that was a really powerful thing for me in that session, kind of looking at, starting out, what values are important to me that I show towards myself on this journey. But that came, as I say, from, I think it was session 1 of me and my health coach, when I was going in there with being skeptical, thinking, what am I going to get from this? Yeah.
That's so powerful, Paddy. Yeah.
Did you know?
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's the beauty of the individualized approach as well, a personalized approach, because here there's really no one size fits all. When we go into that conversation, it's all about exploring what values you have, where do you want to get, and you know, what tools we can develop together to help you to get there. And every conversation is very, very different. Do
you remember my tool, what I did? We had something, and it was something that was like personal to me, and I wanted to be able to see it all the time. So we put it as my screensaver on my phone. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was so good. It was brilliant. Yeah. And I will say as well that, like, what's different in my life now, after having a health coach for so long compared to previous, the biggest thing that I got coming out of it is the non-negotiables that I have in my life now that I never had before. Like, and even I said it to my Pilates instructor the other day, 3 classes of Pilates a week is non-negotiable for me. 2 classes of aqua aerobics is non-negotiable for me. I just have to get those done, because I know even in the moment, if I don't want to do them, I know that, like we said before, we're future-proofing Belinda's life. This is what this is what we're doing for our longevity. This is what we're doing to be able to run around after the kids. So it's not just for me, and they are my non-negotiables. I've never in my life even heard the term non-negotiables, where you think about doing something for yourself, you know? Yeah.
I love that term. Yeah, non-negotiables. And it really does put a boundary around, what's important for us. And really thinking about, what really matters. What do you need in place? What's the baseline that you need in place to help yourself, and therefore, have enough energy, have enough, and had enough
self-esteem,
to even support others around you, because one of the very common challenges I see is with the busy lives and the family and other work demands, is that sometimes it's perceived as selfish, taking some time for yourself. And there's the mom guilt that, of course, very often comes into play, or the dad guilt, and addressing all of this is also part of the story. So it's also about finding how to prioritize your own well-being a bit first. And that's very, very hard. It's very challenging because you are used to prioritize everyone else's needs before yours, and finding those priorities super challenging, not easy.
Yeah. And I think also a bit of worthiness comes into it as well. That was a huge thing for me. Like when pre-Ozempic, I would never have thought that I deserved to take all of that time out of my week and purely concentrate on myself. But I feel now that if I don't do it, then I'm doing me, especially, and everyone else around me a disservice. That's how I look at it now, So, as I said, non-negotiable. Yeah.
It's pouring from an empty cup.
Yeah. And Nikki, I'd love to know, so if we think about your background a bit, okay, what was it that kind of led you into, first of all, the area of health coaching and coaching? Like, what was it that kind of, made you think, ooh, that could be something for me? And then I guess maybe more so a little bit specifically within the area that you spend a lot of your time now for patients and people that are, living with obesity. Why that area? Or just love to know a bit more about that.
Okay, how much time do we have? We'll keep it brief, don't worry. So my journey into health coaching, it did originate from my own personal mental and physical health struggles as well, like you might find that with other health coaches. So I have been struggling with depression and mental health issues ever since I was a kid, very, very early on. And in addition to that, there has been a lot of chronic diseases in my family. And I kind of... So that ever since I was a kid, I was overweight. I had body image issues. I had mental health issues. It was an ongoing struggle all along. Not to mention my environment was always filled with, some form of fight against different diseases in the family. So not the best set of genetics to have. But ultimately, a few years ago, I kind of reached my breaking point. I lost my parents to cancer in a very quick succession, both of them. And at that stage, it dawned on me that I must be missing something here. There must be a reason why this is happening in my family, something that's a complete oversight, something I didn't notice. There's no way my family is just that one of those unfortunate ones. So these kind of questions, it's just sort of led me into discovering different areas. What am I missing? What's the missing puzzle piece here? And I started looking a little bit into the side of nutrition and stress and really all these areas. But it's really a lot of research and reading about different things. But one thing that really struck me is how throughout my entire life, even despite the fact that I've seen, psychologists in the past because I had a depression even when I was a kid, there was no one ever in my life asked me about, are you stressed, or what are you eating, or are you sleeping okay? So I went through a lot of medical professionals with all sorts of issues, and it was just not part of the conversation. And when I really started studying nutrition and studying more, how all these well-being areas really affect us, it was like, a light bulb moment of oh my God, how come that no one ever asked me these questions? Because, I was not looking after myself at all, despite, now there are more and more evidence on of how nutrition impacts us, how our sleep matters, our stress, all these things, incredibly important. And once I made that realization, there was no stopping me. So I wanted to learn everything. And this, led me into the health coaching qualification. And now next year I will qualify as a nutritional therapist as well. So the next step in my journey.
Congratulations. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
And how I came about joining Beyond BMI. So a few years ago, when the founders of Beyond BMI, Dr. Harriet Tracy, she was looking into integrating health coaching into the Beyond BMI program. So her approach from the get-go is to build up a multidisciplinary team. And part of it was, thinking about health coaching. And that was a very novel approach. And that was incredible because, in Ireland especially, health coaching is not as popular yet as in other countries. So that was a mission I was really happy to be a part of, because it was something new, but it was a very whole health focus approach. The more and more I learned about obesity, it was just an area that I found there is a lot to do to remove the stigma, remove the judgment, and offer people the treatment they deserve. And I think that was something that, I will really happily do in the future as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's
wow.
Yeah, phenomenal journey, like in terms of your own life experience as well, and like your health and that kind of motivation to want to, I guess, help others, and particularly, as somebody who has lived with again obesity for the majority of the last kind of 40 years, I'd say, even as a child and as a teenager and stuff like that, it's so refreshing and kind of encouraging to hear that there are people out there that have your back and that are rooting for you and that want to break down that stigma within the care of obesity. And obviously that's something that Beyond BMI are they're championing from the get-go in terms of trying to create a better space and more expecting space. And even I remember us doing a session about like wording and phrases and terminology around obesity, and how can that be more compassionate and just really powerful.
Nikki, do you think that all of your determination came from feelings of being let down, where your health was concerned?
So I would phrase it in a way that it was more driven by how empowered I felt just by educating myself and knowing and realizing how important all these lifestyle elements really is, and the transformative effect of addressing mindset, addressing how you think about yourself. Self-compassion is something that's really important. Even with our clients in Beyond BMI, we work on self-compassion very, very often, because that's one of those tools and skills that we need in our lives, regardless of where we are in our journey. So feeling that empowerment and finding the right treatment can be really transformative. So I would say remembering how I felt when I realized that, oh my God, there are all these areas that are still in my control, and I can actually work on these, and they will all add up together in the bigger picture. That's what I wanted to put forward and bring it with myself.
And self-compassion is, I know we can just talk about it and say you need it and all the rest of it, but it's having, I think, for everybody that would have been with Beyond BMI, excuse me, trying to tell somebody to have self-compassion for themselves when they've come off the back of 3 decades of feeling ashamed and feeling less than and feeling worthless. You are going to need every single bit of help that you can get to be able to take that weight off your shoulders and be compassionate to yourself. It's a really, really hard thing to do. Like, how hard that was for me as well, Nikki, and to step away from all the learned behaviors that made me carry that weight on my shoulders. And, but it is transformative. I think when it happens.
I wonder is like some of the reason why it's so difficult, and I guess it can be it'll be difficult for different people for different reasons. But like, I know all my life I lived in a space whereby society made me feel that this was all my fault because I wasn't eating less and moving more, and that was meant to be the answer. And again, as a qualified personal trainer, that was I would have been aware of that kind of terminology. I never fully aligned with it. Like, obviously you understand the foundations of like energy balance and stuff like that, but that never seemed to be the real answer for me. Even when I was qualified, I was like, I don't get it. Why are people just saying this? There has to be more. And it's only really, I'd say, over the past year that I've kind of fully been able to understand in truer detail the importance of all the other things. That like the eat less and move more is probably not the most difficult thing for people in terms of if I look at my friends and that have, you know, lived with being overweight and trying to handle that, they probably know more about nutrition than the average person in the street because they've invested so much in trying to understand this themselves. That the things that can be more difficult is, I think as Belinda says, that bit of self-compassion about accepting, first of all, this isn't your fault. There can be biological reasons why your body is working against you. And that's a phrase I'll kind of always go to now, is that my medical treatment, Mounjaro, that I'm on, it helps me balance out that biological inefficiency. So in effect, that I have a level playing field then, so that I can focus on my nutrition, I can focus on my movement, and have a fairer chance of success when I'm putting in the kind of efforts there. But the other things like that you touched on as well, Nikki, like the huge importance of things like sleep, of stress as well, like, and trying to have better management of those. It's one of the things I'm studying at the moment via Precision Nutrition, is their stress and sleep management kind of qualification as well, to try and better understand, okay, what roles do these play, not just in weight, but they do play a part in those as well, but overall just kind of well-being is so important. But I do think we've been conditioned so much over our lives that it's just eat less, move more. Just eat less, move more. That's the answer. Yeah. When in reality, that's I guess I see the bigger answer is no, taking some time for yourself and uncovering what is your answer, because it's going to be different for each person. That's where a health coach can help you with understanding what your unique journey is. But whatever that journey is, the most important thing is to recognize first and foremost, this isn't your fault. You know, there's so many reasons. And
unfortunately, we have been told that our whole lives, up until Paddy 6 months ago, me 2 years ago. And the rhetoric of eat less, move more, once that was taken out of the way for us, we were able to soar. And we were able to concentrate on our nutrition, and we were able to concentrate on our movement. Yeah. And like taking that medication once a week has actually become the smallest part of my journey now for me. Yeah. It really has. Same for you, Paddy?
Yeah. I do kind of flip it on the other side as well. The other end of the spectrum, say with whether it be disordered eating or conditions or stuff like that, like you wouldn't go and say to somebody that is trying to live with anorexia or bulimia that, oh, just eat more and, you know, keep your food. You wouldn't, but yet it's almost seen as socially acceptable to do it on the other end of the scale. Oh, you're just lazy, or you're just eating too much, or whatever. It's like there's so much work needed there in terms of breaking down that stigma and the understanding of the disease of obesity. And that's where obviously we have, you know, some brilliant voices and advocates now kind of trying to do that, like Nikki, like Beyond BMI, like, you know, different doctors, and, you know, increasingly there is a little bit more, but it's definitely an uphill battle. But Nikki, if I dig into, I guess, for somebody that might be listening and is sitting there thinking, I haven't a clue where to start. I don't know what even step one is of trying to understand what journey I need to take to become comfortable with improving my life in terms of my weight. What kind of tip or advice would you give to somebody that might be sitting there just feeling very overwhelmed about a journey that might be needed ahead of them?
Yeah, it is very easy to become overwhelmed because there's just so much noise, information out there, and that makes even the decision making really difficult. Where to start? What's the first step? So I would say, of course, you guys know I work for Beyond BMI, so. One thing that I think is really important is find people that are experts in this field, and try to narrow down your focus, because listening to, some random people on the internet is not necessarily the right expertise you're looking for. So finding those doctors, those experts in obesity that actually are credible, is super, super important. And just start there, and start just by educating yourself around different options. And if you want to have a conversation, all of these programs, not even just Beyond BMI, but they do have an option to just have a chat, and just discover. So you don't need to commit to anything, but learning and educating yourself is really important. Paddy, you know that saying, and you said it yourself, it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility. And that responsibility, I find it as a self-respect. So respecting yourself, being kind to yourself enough to be open to have those conversations. That's where the key lies. And really just find the experts on the field. That's always the best approach, in my opinion.
It's something...
Invest in yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something like myself and Melinda, again, we say on every podcast, on any live, as much as we will talk about things and might have bits of insight of things, we're not qualified doctors or professionals or stuff like that in that realm. And it's so important, again, as you say, Nikki, just to double down it, that you do engage with the right qualified health professional or person to help you with the various aspects of your journey. And that's where, again, say the likes of Beyond BMI, they do have that multidisciplinary approach on hand.
And also I think when you do join something like that, like Beyond BMI, you are in there, you're investing, you're spending your money, you now know that you are worth this, but it also gives you longevity in your journey as well. And it assists you in so many ways, and it just keeps you going. It keeps you motivated. It keeps you focused. From somebody who went into my first coaching session completely chaotic, not in myself, but my brain was completely addled from 3 decades of dieting, eat less, move more, all the rest of it. And my God, did that take some time to come out the other side of that and realize that none of that is true. And I didn't need to be going around murdering my own head, every single day. And yes, that's what I say about having a health coach. It was a brilliant experience.
And Nikki, that kind of idea in particular of self-compassion, because that's been one of the biggest things for me. And Belinda, we've spoke about this in our own chats, in our WhatsApp voice notes back and forward all day when things come up. Sometimes it's like, okay, self-compassion and this is okay or that's okay. But again, getting to a place of allowing yourself to show self-compassion to yourself or accepting that that's okay can be a mammoth thing for people. What advice would you have for somebody in terms of, I don't know, even like the smallest step or initial thing, particularly in relation to that idea of self-compassion?
Oh, that's a difficult one, because self-compassion, I think it's a very broad ranging topic. And in terms of getting started, that can be very daunting. So if someone is telling you, oh, why don't you just be compassionate with yourself? That's really not helpful. Because it's like, oh, that sounds weird. I don't want to do it. So I would say, initially, it might be easier to think about if self-compassion is a bit too much for you, or it's something that's a little bit out of grasp for the moment. That's okay. But why don't we explore kindness first. So can we be a little bit kinder every day to ourselves? And that will tie back into the self-compassion piece. But kindness is something that doesn't have to be, tied into anything, but just showing some gesture for yourself, something that really helps you, something that shows you that you are looking after yourself. And that can in turn really increase your confidence and really start putting you in that motion of, you know what, I can do this, I can take care of myself. And that small act of kindness every day, it can be, just making a really nice cup of coffee in the morning. It can be doing your nails. It can be, anything that you can think of, just a small act of kindness, one at a time. It makes it very tangible and very practical, and we can start there. And that's something practical that we can put in place right from the get-go. And then we will slowly working towards what self-compassion means to you, and define it based on your values, because this compassion piece can look very different for everyone, but it all comes from kindness, and that's where I would start probably.
I love that, and I love that positioning.
Yeah,
because the way that I have packaged that in my head, and it took me a long time to get to this place, was what is my moment of joy today, particularly if it is a period of busyness or stress or whatever. And lately every day seems to be full of busyness again, which Belinda knows when we're talking about things. It's like, and then Belinda will be like, Paddy, when's the last time you just sat down? And it's like, oh God, I can't.
Yeah.
But the one thing that stays constant for me now is that I need to make sure that I prioritize moments of joy throughout the day or the week or whatever for me. And sometimes that can be literally putting on a song that makes me feel good or makes me smile, or something with my partner or the cat or something like that, but something that makes me feel good about me in the day. And that could be like a 2-minute thing or a 2-minute thing, whatever, but it's so important for me now, so important.
But that's a learned behavior now, Paddy,
it is.
Isn't it?
It took a long time to get there and realize that was a thing I needed to help me in my journey and to, I guess, stay good with myself. Yeah.
And everybody needs that, and everybody should be doing that, and everybody should be open to it. But unfortunately, like I said, it's hard. It's a hard thing to do, and it takes a lot of strength, and it takes focus, and it also takes courage. And everybody needs a little bit of help.
Yeah.
So I think where a health coach is concerned, if you have the opportunity to have a health coach, if you feel like investing in yourself and you want your life to be better, more focused, you want longevity, go and get yourself a health coach, It's the best thing that ever happened to me. And I'm not just saying that because you're sat here, Nikki. I went through a lot, I went through a lot of figuring stuff out and came out the other side all the better for it, Yeah.
That's amazing to hear, Belinda, and thank you for sharing that story.
But it's true.
It's nice to hear too that you advocate for the health coaching, because I do think like that it's going to be a very fundamental part of healthcare in the future. So I see a really big potential in growing the health coaching function across all healthcare services. We need that space. We need to heard, and we need to work on these areas that absolutely do contribute to our well-being, our long-term health, our longevity. So hopefully this will always evolve in the future.
I'd love to see a world whereby, whether it be somebody going to the likes of Beyond BMI, which already have the multidisciplinary approach covered, but even in, say, the community setting, that if you're going to just your own GP and, I don't know, they prescribe you, say, Saxenda, which is one of the ones available, readily in Ireland, but that you don't just get a prescription, that you also get a referral to a health coach or to a dietitian, or to that it's almost part of the package that you get to help you on your journey, as opposed to what we see with 99.99% of what's happening in the UK, where you just get, it's like prescribe and go, and you're riding solo, and it's such a daunting journey. So it is. But
the thing is as well, I think that we have to remember that the reason that that's happening, Paddy, is because the doctors are not supporting the people. But then on the ground, they're absolutely not. I mean, from my experience of going into my doctor about my weight and whatever, I was never given any help. Never, ever, ever.
But I think that comes down to then what support are the doctors getting from the healthcare system as well. And also probably a little bit off the fact that most doctors will be general practitioners as opposed to a specialist in their area, like a health coach or a dietitian or that.
But they should know where to refer people, Paddy.
Yeah, and that's something hopefully will improve, over time.
Yeah.
Is that piece. As we learn more about the journeys people are on and the importance of that multidisciplinary approach for people and how people can be supported.
Yeah. I don't even know if the general GPs have any idea that they can say to their patient, there's Beyond BMI out there, there's My Best Weight, and these people are all geared towards helping you holistically through your whole journey. They don't ever mention anything like that, anything ever,
Yeah. But
they should.
That's where the advocacy is so important, I guess, through the work that Nikki and people like that are doing, at the moment.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Belinda, any kind of final questions or bits that you had on your little list that we didn't get to cover?
Let me just check 1 second now.
Because we're conscious of our time as well. I think we've about 4 minutes.
No, not really, because I think I've said everything I needed to say. And Nikki, you were brilliant.
Oh, thank you
so much. Thank you so much. Is Nikki our first guest?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
You're our first guest.
Yeah.
Wow. That makes me feel very special, guys.
Yeah. Oh, I knew the minute we started this podcast that you were going to be on here. The minute we started it.
Yeah. It was spoken about a long time ago, and I can contest to what Belinda said. She is like a major Nikki fangirl. Like, there's not every few days your name comes up somewhere, Nikki. So it does about
no pressure
about the impact and influence and support that you have been on this journey. But Nikki, any kind of final words of wisdom for people that might be listening?
Oh, yeah. So first of all, thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure to be here. And I know we do need more advocates for and more voices, more importantly, in the media, whoever is going on in this journey, to remove stigma, to remove judgment. There's a lot of work to do. And the conversation is changing, and it's changing because of you guys. And it's changing because the other voices out there who are empathetic, who are compassionate, and who want to help others to understand that it's a really, really important treatment that is available now, and it can be life-changing. And I'm sure, I have a feeling that your listeners are very similar in a way that they do consider GLP-1s and other medications as a tool. So it is like these tools and these medications are game-changing. They are transformative, and they do address the biological drivers of weight, and that's incredible. Profound effect on metabolic health, obesity, and they will continue to improve. But the real power, I find, it really lies in utilizing them as a tool. So what they do is they make it possible to work on other areas in your life that really impact your well-being. Think about other things you could do, anything from lowering the barrier to physical activity, being a bit more physically active, managing stress. Think about other aspects in life where you can make a difference and make you feel even better. So all these things are so important to consider. Our health is very complex, and we are very complex, and therefore we do need a complex and comprehensive solution here. Just basically, if I had a magic wand, I would just encourage everyone to look out for the treatment they deserve, because they deserve it. Everyone deserves the right treatment. Obesity is the only chronic relapsing disease where it has such a cultural root behind, because of how weight has been a thing in the media since probably humanity existed. That it makes it really, really difficult to avail of the right treatment, because people do feel stigma and judgment around it. So I just wish more people would come on board.
Thank you so much. And I think they're the best words to finish on, Nikki.
Ever. Thank you so much,
amazing.
Nikki. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Such a pleasure.
Take care. Bye.
Take care. Remember, the information within this podcast should not be taken as personal medical advice. Always consult your own healthcare team before starting or changing any medical treatment.